Overthinking is not just thinking too much. It's actually a coping strategy and a survival technique that our nervous system creates to protect ourselves. And in this episode, I'm going to be going a little bit deeper on the overthinker. I recently did an episode on the overthinker, just a brief overview and a couple tips to help work through some habits of overthinking. But we actually had a request to go a little bit deeper, so that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm pretty excited because, like I said at the end of the last episode, overthinking is a problem of mine as well. So speaking from personal experience, I can kind of help break it down a little bit. It's a coping strategy, and this strategy tries to help us avoid any uncertainty, any unsafety. It tries to create predictability or control over a situation, but you can't always have those things, and overthinking is not going to solve those issues. It actually creates a lot of anxiety, stress, paralysis, and a disconnection from self and others. It actually kind of splits into two categories where you can be ruminating, which is a cyclical, past-focused thinking in loops where you're just like, why did I say that? What are they thinking? What did I do wrong? What could I have done different? And going in that cyclical pattern. Or worry, which is future-focused, all the what-ifs and catastrophic thinking. And that's on the thinking side of things. But emotionally, it's a nervous system that's searching for safety. It's a trauma response disguised as logic, or it's a way to avoid feeling something harder that's underneath that we're just avoiding. So I'm going to break it down into 3 smaller categories of the overthinker. This is just to help understand and grasp the idea, but if we break it down into 3 smaller categories, we could go with the analyzer. And this person, likely as a child, probably had to grow up needing to anticipate others' reactions. So maybe they had parents who were unstable emotionally, which created an anxious attachment style, needing to guess like their parents, how they were feeling before they could interact with them. Like the classic example of, if mom's in a good mood, then I'll ask her and then she'll let me spend the night. So kind of like anticipating parents' reactions. So this person now, as an adult or adolescent, probably breaks down all the details, trying to solve things like it's a math problem. So that's one type of overthinker. Another is the catastrophizer. And the catastrophizer may subconsciously or consciously think that if they think of the worst possible scenario, then they won't be blindsided. So maybe they came from an inconsistent household as a child or a chaotic childhood. That could look like very traumatic, it could like moving around a lot, parents in and out of the house, just not having a stability in their home. So catastrophizing logically makes you think that if I can figure out the worst possible scenario, then I can avoid it, one, or I can be prepared and not be blindsided. I can be prepared emotionally to handle the worst case scenario. And the last one is a perfectionist. So this one is rooted in fear or being rejected. And everybody hates rejection, but it's a part of life. And so is being wrong. So this perfectionist may believe that if they make the perfect choice, then they can avoid pain or disappointment. So they thrive on trying to make the best decision possible, which then, like I mentioned in the last episode, can lead into decision paralysis. So there's a lot of things that overthinking helps people avoid. And I've made a list because it's a long list, but it helps us to avoid a lot of things which are pretty much unavoidable. So this can be a pretty maladaptive coping strategy, but it's helped people get to where they are now because of how they learned to do it when they were a child. So overthinking helps people avoid making a decision, and possibly a wrong one. So they could avoid making a decision altogether. They could delay it until they don't have to make a decision, or they could just spiral out until someone else makes a decision. It helps people to avoid feeling shame, feeling grief, feeling anger, feeling out of control, feeling like their needs might not be met, feeling responsible for others' emotions, or feeling like they're a disappointment. So basically, overthinking acts as an emotional armor. It keeps you from feeling these feelings, but avoiding the feeling actually makes it stronger. So just like any fear in general, if we avoid a fear, it builds up that fear even worse to when we actually feel it. So with social anxiety, for example, if you avoid social situations, the next time you get put in a social situation, it's going to exacerbate that fear response because you're not exposing yourself to it. So avoiding a fear just makes that thing bigger. So overthinking is not a great coping skill. It's just a strategy that has been developed, and it works, but it's not great. With avoiding doing all of these things, we now have thinking replacing doing and thinking replacing feeling. So all this thinking is going on, but nothing is ever getting solved because there's no actual complete answer. So now our body reacts because all this thinking is going on, and we've got a hypervigilant nervous system, a chronic sympathetic activation, which is the fight or flight reaction. So our body easily gets into fight or flight. And then we have a very low tolerance for uncertainty. So without that certainty in life, which is normal, our body is just going to constantly react to every situation. Now, overthinking is often a secondary emotion like anger. I don't know if you've heard of the anger iceberg, but usually there's anger at the top of the iceberg, and then underneath the water is all of these other feelings and situations going on. So overthinking is very similar. And as a therapist, if I notice a client is an overthinker, there's a lot of things running through my head of what it actually could be, or what the deeper situation is going on. So I've made a list of those things as well. It could be anxiety. Coming from a trauma therapist, is it trauma? Is it perfectionism? Is there a relational wound, fear of getting something wrong or making the wrong decision? There's relationship anxiety, where people fear getting into a relationship because this is the wrong person. Am I going to mess this up? Are they going to hurt me? All those kinds of questions. Is this ADHD masked by overthinking, like the decision paralysis? Or could this be chronic fawning or people pleasing? So I don't know if you've heard this either, but there's actually 4 parts to the fight or flight response. There's fight, flight, freeze, and appease, or fawn. So that would be the, like, please don't hurt me, I'll do anything, just don't hurt me. Like the trying to appease somebody so they'll avoid doing a certain action. And that's part of the fight or flight response. So there's some patterns that overthinkers tend to have, and at some point these can get into OCD, like obsessive compulsive disorder. And I'm not talking about that realm. We're just talking about the anxiety realm. So the overthinking, the thinking instead of doing, the thinking instead of feeling. And I'm going to list off some of these patterns. If you relate, you can leave a comment, but these are pretty common. So there's apologizing excessively, asking for reassurance repeatedly, needing clarity or closure ASAP, like it has to be done right this second. Replaying conversations, I gotta be honest, I do that a lot when I'm trying to go to sleep, laying in bed at night and just replaying everything I said throughout the day. Avoiding conflict but rehearsing conflict in their head. That's a big one for me too. Picking the right time but never acting, because there never is a right time. Feeling both deeply self-aware and deeply stuck. That's a good one. Feeling responsible for managing how others feel. Oh, that's a big one. And then keeping multiple mental tabs open at all times. I actually heard a funny metaphor for ADHD recently about keeping all the tabs open, and there's just too many tabs and too many topics to think about at the same time with ADHD. So that one could apply to overthinking as well. So obviously we're not just gonna stop thinking. You can't just tell an overthinker to just stop thinking. So the thought is not to just stop thinking, it's to interrupt the thoughts. So that could be trying to identify the feeling. If you notice yourself overthinking, either ruminating or worrying, you can try and stop and think, what is the feeling that I'm trying to avoid? We can do like physical things, like put your hands in warm water or cold water. Holding ice is a good one. Touching something textured, doing the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory grounding technique, which is 5 things you can see, listing those out, 4 things you can touch, actually touching them and describing how they feel, 3 things you can hear, and then 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste, and actually tasting it. You can ask yourself, is this a thought or a fear? Separate imagination from reality. You can use the 70% rule when making decisions. This one I feel like would be very helpful because no decision is going to be absolutely 100% certain. So if you can decide this is 70% certain, then you can make that decision. And then time limit your thinking. So I feel like this one can be pretty hard to grasp at first, but can be helpful. And I've recommended this to clients in other scenarios too, like grieving, for example, like giving yourself an hour, setting a timer, journaling, playing all the sad songs, just letting all those emotions out for that 1 hour and scheduling it every day. So if this is for overthinking, maybe not an hour, maybe we do, I have 5 minutes to sit down and analyze this, and then I have to make a decision. Or I have 10 minutes to journal about this, and then I have to let it go for now. I have 10 minutes, and then I can think about it again tomorrow. But there's a time limit, so you can set yourself on a schedule, and you don't spend all of your time thinking about this one situation or scenario. So those are my tips on overthinking and a little bit more information on overthinkers altogether. I hope this helped, and I hope it helped you think a little bit more about your own thoughts and if it's actually you trying to mask some feelings under there. Until next time, keep on reflecting.